Imagine hearing that your entire city is about to be vaporized by an atomic death ray, but the news is cheerfully interrupted to remind you that your laundry could smell like sunshine if you just buy the right brand of soap.
Right, the new pastel box of soap.
Exactly. It sounds like a dark comedy sketch, but it is actually one of the most profound pieces of audio history ever broadcast. Welcome to tonight's deep dive. We are broadcasting, as always, on the Chesterton Radio Network out here in Atchison, Kansas.
And it is quite a night out there.
It really is. It's late. The rain is coming down pretty hard against the studio windows right now. And while we are settling in for the kind of conversation you can really only have when the rest of the world has gone to sleep.
The best time for radio, I think.
Oh, absolutely. There is a specific kind of warmth to it. So if you are listening to us right now, maybe you're driving, maybe you're just sitting in a leather chair by a lamp, we invite you to just settle in. Tonight, we are pulling a forgotten artifact out of the archives. We are looking at the 1954 Lux Radio Theatre adaptation of the classic science fiction story, The Day the Earth Stood Still.
Which is just a masterpiece.
It really is. Now, I know the 1951 film adaptation with Michael Rennie is legendary, but there is something about this specific radio broadcast that feels incredibly potent.
It is a remarkable piece of media, and I am so glad we are exploring it tonight. The radio adaptation, which, it also stars Michael Rennie and Gene Peters reprising their film roles, it strips away the visual spectacle.
No flying saucers.
Right. No visual flying saucers, no giant robots you can actually see. By removing that visual element, the broadcast forces the listener to engage with the material on a much more intimate psychological level.
It happens in your head.
Exactly. It ceases to be just like a B-movie pulp story and reveals itself as a defining Cold War parable. It's a rather subversive moral warning and deeply, deeply a theological allegory.
That is the part that hooked me right away. Because on the surface, it's a story about an alien and a robot landing in Washington, D.C.
Right.
But the underlying theme driving the entire narrative is what we've been calling the Chestertonian question. And before we get into the aliens and the saucers, can you explain what that actually means for the listener? Like, why call it Chestertonian?
Sure. So it refers to the English writer and philosopher G.K. Chesterton. He wrote extensively about the peril of human progress when it outpaces human virtue.
Okay.
So the Chestertonian dilemma essentially asks, what happens when technological power advances faster than moral imagination?
That is such a heavy question.
It is. Chesterton argued that modern man has been given the terrible, immense powers of the gods. I mean, we can split the atom, we can level entire cities in an instant, we can communicate across the globe. But emotionally and morally, we still possess the volatile tribal instincts of frightened toddlers.
Wow. Frightened toddlers with atomic bombs.
Precisely. We have been handed a loaded revolver before we have learned the value of life.
So the premise here is that we have outgrown our own maturity. We built the weapons before we built the character required to not use them.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
And in 1954, when this aired, that was not an abstract philosophical thought experiment at all.
No, it was the reality.
The atomic age had fully dawned. The United States and the Soviet Union were locked in this escalating arms race.
Right.
The hydrogen bomb, which was, exponentially more destructive than the weapons dropped on Japan, had just been tested.
Right.
The fear of absolute sudden nuclear annihilation was a daily simmering anxiety for the average American. I mean, they were building fallout shelters in their backyards. They were teaching school children to hide under their wooden desks.
Duck and cover drills. Which brings us to the most jarring part of this specific broadcast. We are talking about a society vibrating with the fear of global extinction. And yet, the Lux Radio Theatre format wraps this apocalyptic story in the most bizarre, cheerful packaging imaginable. The commercials in this broadcast, they blew my mind.
The contrast is staggering. It really is a perfect time capsule of mid-century American psychology.
Yeah.
You tune in for a story about humanity facing its own destruction, but your guides for the evening are Ken Carpenter and Art Linkletter.
Class of radio voices.
Two absolute stalwarts of mid-century broadcasting, and they are just enthusiastically pitching household products.
I just couldn't believe the whiplash. In one segment, the alien is delivering an ultimatum that the Earth will be reduced to a burned-out cinder.
Right.
And then, seamlessly, Ken Carpenter jumps in to tell the housewives listening that they never have to see another messy dish because of Lux liquid detergent.
Lux liquid, right.
He's talking about a, quote, wonderful new dripless spout, and then Art Linkletter comes on to pitch all-purpose surf, promising clothes that smell like sunshine without the need for water softener.
It's surreal.
It feels like applying a fresh coat of pastel paint to a house while an F5 tornado is a mile away and bearing down on you. Why structure a broadcast this way? Like, what is the psychology there?
Well, it wasn't intentional irony on the part of the network, obviously. They were just selling soap. But the effect is profoundly revealing. Those commercials represent the absolute pinnacle of post-war American consumerism and optimism.
The American dream.
Right. They project a worldview that believes implicitly in progress in chemistry. The underlying promise of those ads is that American industry can solve every domestic problem.
Got a dull complexion. Buy this soap.
Exactly. Greasy plates, a sour smell on your laundry. Science and industry have the cure. Lever Brothers, the sponsor, is positioned as this benevolent force guaranteeing a brighter, cleaner tomorrow.
It's the illusion of ultimate control, isn't it? Like, we can't control the Soviet Union, and we can't control the atom bomb, but by God, we can control the water spots on our silverware.
That is exactly the psychological mechanism at play. The commercials anchor the listener in a mundane, safe, perfectly manicured reality.
Yeah.
They provide a desperate sort of comfort. The sunny, middle-class optimism sits right on top of this yawning chasm of apocalyptic paranoia. And creatively, this makes the intrusion of the alien threat within the story feel all the more disruptive.
Because it invades the safe space.
Exactly. It invades the very same radio waves that just promised you sunshine and security.
Let's talk about the medium itself, because that intrusion is entirely auditory. I struggle sometimes to understand why people were so terrified by radio dramas. Like watching the movie, you see the silver saucer, you see the imposing robot, Gort. Why is the audio-only version considered by some to be even more effective? Because it seems like it would be less scary if you can't see the monster.
It comes down to the mechanics of the human imagination. In cinema, the director shows you the monster. Once you see the rubber suit or the tin can robot, your brain can categorize it.
Right, it's a guy in a suit.
Right. It is contained within the boundaries of the screen. But audio relies on what we call the theater of the mind. The absence of visual effects doesn't eliminate the terror. It actually forces your brain to construct it.
And my brain knows exactly what scares me the most.
Exactly. Your own imagination will always tailor its creations to your specific, deepest fears.
So when the script describes Gort walking down the ramp, I'm not just passively receiving an image. My brain is actively doing the rendering.
Yes, and the broadcast relies heavily on its sonic landscape to force that participation. They utilize an instrument called a theremin.
Oh, I love that theremin.
It's so iconic for this era. It produces this piercing, whining, unearthly hum, and they use that to represent the alien presence. So when the narrator describes a giant mechanical enforcer, the listener doesn't see it.
They just hear it.
They hear the terrified, chaotic shouts of the soldiers on the D.C. Mall. They hear the sudden, violent sound effects of tanks and artillery being turned into vapor.
Yeah, that hissing, crackling sound.
Right, and they hear the heavy, grinding, rhythmic strides of metal on metal. Your brain takes those auditory cues and builds an indestructible, towering nightmare right in the middle of your living room.
That makes a lot of sense. It bypasses the eyes and goes straight to the nervous system. And the way the broadcast sets up the opening scene perfectly leverages that intimacy, I think. I want to look at how they handle the actual arrival of the spaceship.
It's a great setup.
Because they don't just start with an explosion, they start with an incredibly normal day.
The script is brilliant in its pacing here. The narrator deliberately establishes an illusion of permanence. He describes a pleasant spring day, like an ideal afternoon for a walk in the park.
People pushing baby buggies.
Exactly. He points out that there have been 1 billion or more such sparkling days since the Earth began, spoiled by nothing more than a slight head cold. It's a marvelous time to be alive in the 20th century.
And then the interruption. It's not a sudden crash. It's this slow, creeping realization. The object is noticed first on British radar in Hong Kong, moving at 4,000 miles an hour.
Which was unthinkable speed back then.
Right. The operator assumes it's faulty equipment, but then the alarm spreads. The broadcast cuts to frantic announcers in Moscow, in Kolkata, on Radio Luxembourg.
It's a global event instantly.
Yeah, the tension builds globally until the American radar confirms it's dropping straight down from 200,000 feet right over Washington, D.C.
The cinematic tension translated to audio is just masterful here. The ship lands right on the mall near the Washington Monument. And the sound design does something fascinating right at this moment. It utilizes absolute silence.
Yes. The silence is so heavy.
The narrator describes a massive cordon of tanks, armored cars, and troops in full battle dress surrounding the ship. thousands of curiosity seekers. Every weapon on the eastern seaboard is trained on this smooth, unmoving metal dome, and the world just holds its breath.
And then a wedge opens in the ship, a ramp slithers out, and out steps a spaceman. The dialogue tells us he's wearing a close-fitting suit, almost like a deep-sea diver, with a spherical helmet concealing his face.
Very mysterious.
He walks down the ramp, raises his hand, and delivers his first words to humanity. He says, "We've come to visit you in peace and with goodwill. Receive me as a friend."
It is an unambiguous greeting of peace. He is quite literally offering friendship to the entire planet.
And a nervous soldier immediately shoots him.
Yes.
The spaceman reaches into his tunic. The soldier screams, "It's a ray gun or something. I'm going to let him have it," and opens fire. The alien goes down, and the device he was pulling out, which he later explains was a gift for the President of the United States to study life on other planets, is just shattered on the ground.
It's a tragic moment.
I have to stop here because this moment frustrates me every time I encounter it in science fiction. Why do we always shoot the alien?
It's a trope for a reason.
It makes humanity look so incredibly stupid. It's like a new neighbor walking over with a welcome pie, and we pull a shotgun because we don't recognize the baking dish. Why is violence our default setting when encountering the unknown?
Your frustration is exactly what the writers intended, but we have to look at the mechanism behind that trigger pull. Why do we shoot the alien? It goes back to that Chestertonian dilemma we talked about.
Right.
The soldier who fires that shot is not a villain. He isn't acting out of calculated malice or a desire to start an interstellar war. He is acting out of sheer, unadulterated panic.
He shoots because he's terrified.
Exactly. This is the anatomy of human fear. Our technological power, the tanks, the artillery, the atomic bombs surrounding that ship has vastly outpaced our emotional evolution.
We're still cavemen inside.
Evolutionarily speaking, our brains are still wired for the Pleistocene epoch. When we encounter something truly unknown, something we cannot categorize, control, or understand, our biological imperative screams at us to destroy it before it destroys us.
Fight or flight, and we chose fight.
We do not have the moral imagination to pause and consider that an unknown variable might be benevolent.
So the shattered gift on the ground isn't just a broken prop. It's a symbol of our failure.
It represents the tragic loss of knowledge and connection, destroyed instantly by our own knee-jerk tribalism. And it immediately validates the necessity of the spaceman's mission.
Because he came to judge us.
Right, yes. He, Klaatu, has traveled across the stars to evaluate whether humanity is too dangerous to be allowed to participate in the wider universe. And within 3 minutes of landing, before he even gets to a hospital, we have proven his worst fears about us. We shoot first because violence is our default setting when facing the unknown.
That completely sets up his motivation for the rest of the story. Klaatu survives the gunshot, obviously. He's taken to Walter Reed Hospital, where the military doctors are completely baffled by how fast his tissue heals.
They've never seen anything like it.
Right. He demands a meeting with representatives from all the nations of the Earth. He tells the president's secretary, a man named Mr. Harley, that his mission concerns the existence of every last creature on the planet, and it must not be complicated by what he calls the childish jealousies of Earth's politics.
And Mr. Harley, representing the pragmatic reality of the 1950s geopolitical landscape, tells him that such a meeting is impossible.
Which is just so depressing.
It is. He explains that the world is too divided by tensions and suspicions. The Soviets won't sit with the Americans, the East won't sit with the West. He essentially tells Klaatu that Earth's political structures are incapable of unity, even in the face of an existential, extraterrestrial reality.
Klaatu's response is fantastic, though. He just coldly says, "I'm impatient with stupidity. My people have learned to live without it."
Such a great line.
It is. He realizes instantly that dealing with bureaucrats and politicians is a dead end. If he wants to understand why humans are so unreasoning and violent, he can't do it from a military hospital. He has to escape and walk among the ordinary people.
And this transition is where the narrative elevates itself from a geopolitical sci-fi thriller into a profound theological allegory.
Let's dig into that because it's heavy.
It is. So Klaatu manages to steal a suit from a hospital doctor. He slips out into the city of Washington, D.C., a fugitive. He eventually finds his way to a very ordinary middle-class rooming house run by a woman named Mrs. Crockett.
Yeah.
When she asks him for his name, he glances at the dry cleaning tag on the stolen suit and adopts the name Mr. Carpenter.
Okay, I have to call a timeout here. Mr. Carpenter. A man comes down from the sky with a message of peace, gets rejected by the authorities, and starts calling himself a carpenter. That isn't exactly subtle, is it?
It isn't subtle at all, no. but it operates with incredible mythic power. The narrative is heavily, deliberately layering Christ-like imagery onto Klaatu.
I mean, the parallels are right there.
Let's trace them. An alien being descends from the heavens bearing a message of universal peace and salvation. He warns that humanity must radically change its ways or face a final judgment and destruction.
Right.
Upon arrival, he is immediately misunderstood, rejected, and physically wounded by the ruling authorities of the world. So he adopts the name Carpenter, a direct reference to Jesus of Nazareth.
And just like the historical Jesus, he doesn't go back to the religious or political elites. He hides out with the working class.
Yes. He sits at the breakfast table with a widow named Helen Benson and her young son, Bobby. He wants to understand the nature of humanity not through the lens of national policy, but through the daily lived experience of common people. He is seeking the soul of the species.
That search leads to what I think is the emotional core of the entire broadcast, the relationship between Klaatu and the young boy, Bobby.
It's a beautiful dynamic.
It really is. It highlights this profound loneliness of wisdom. Klaatu, functioning as Mr. Carpenter, spends a Sunday touring Washington, D.C. with Bobby, and the alien visitor basically takes the moral measure of our entire world through the innocent eyes of a child.
Children in literature often function as truth-tellers because they haven't yet learned the complex hypocrisies of adult society.
Right, they just say what they see.
Exactly. Bobby asks innocent questions that require Klaatu to evaluate Earth objectively.
There's some funny moments, too, like when Bobby wants to go to the movies and asks if Mr. Carpenter has any money. Klaatu just pulls out a handful of massive alien diamonds.
Casually carrying priceless gems.
Yeah. He ends up trading a flawless diamond worth a fortune for $2 just so he can treat a kid to a matinee. It shows his utter detachment from human materialism. But the tour takes a very dark turn when they visit Arlington National Cemetery.
That scene is devastating. It really is.
Bobby takes Mr. Carpenter to see his father's grave. He tells him that his father, Robert Benson, was killed at Anzio in 1944. Klaatu stands there, looking out over the seemingly endless rolling hills covered in identical white headstones. And he asks Bobby, did all these people here die in wars?
And Bobby, who was just a child raised in the shadow of the Second World War, replies, most of them.
Just matter-of-factly.
Yes. And when Bobby asks if they have places like this where Mr. Carpenter comes from, Klaatu answers with the weight of a far older civilization. He says very gently, they don't have any wars.
You can hear the sorrow in the performance.
You really can. Klaatu is realizing that Earth is a planet almost entirely defined by its battlefields. We are a species that builds vast, manicured monuments to our own self-destruction.
It is a moment of profound judgment, but it is immediately balanced by hope, thankfully. Bobby then takes him to the Lincoln Memorial. Klaatu reads the Gettysburg Address carved into the marble, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth.
It stops the story from becoming completely cynical.
Yeah, Klaatu reads Lincoln's words and says, those are great words. That's the kind of man I'd like to talk to.
He is actively searching for proof of human greatness.
Right. He needs to know that despite the violence, the tribalism, and the graveyards, there is a moral spark in humanity worth saving. The Lincoln Memorial proves to him that we are capable of profound moral imagination, even if our current leaders are completely failing to exercise it.
Which leads him to ask Bobby a crucial question. Who is the greatest man in America today? Who is the greatest philosopher, the greatest thinker?
And Bobby's answer is so telling.
It is. Bobby, reflecting the unique culture of the time, doesn't name a politician or a celebrity. He names Professor Barnard, whom he calls the greatest scientist in the world.
So they go to the professor's house. The professor isn't home, but his study door is open. Klaatu looks in and sees a staggeringly complex problem in celestial mechanics written on a blackboard.
Bobby mentions the professor's been stuck on it for weeks.
Yeah, and Klaatu just casually walks in, picks up a piece of chalk, solves the equation, leaves his boarding house address with the housekeeper, and leaves.
What is culturally fascinating about this sequence is the absolute reverence that 1950s science fiction had for scientists and scholars.
I noticed that. In modern storytelling, the scientist is almost always the villain.
Right. They're the arrogant meddlers who create the monster.
Exactly. Or the greedy corporate researchers who accidentally release the virus. But here, the scientist is the moral high ground.
During the mid-20th century, particularly right after the war, scientists were viewed by many as the true moral arbiters of society. Men like Albert Einstein or J. Robert Oppenheimer were seen as possessing a philosophical weight that politicians lacked.
They were the wise men.
Exactly. When the politicians fail Klaatu, he seeks out the intellectual. Professor Barnard represents the best of human intellect, objective, curious, and unburdened by petty nationalism.
And Barnard proves worthy of that trust. When he discovers the solved equation, he tracks down Mr. Carpenter. Their conversation is brilliant because it's a meeting of equals.
Barnard looks at the math and asks Klaatu, "How can you be so sure?"
And Klaatu replies, "I find it works well enough to get me from one planet to another."
It is the ultimate theoretical physics mic drop.
It really is. And Barnard instantly accepts reality. He doesn't panic. He doesn't call the military. He listens.
He listens. Klaatu explains his true mission. He reveals that other planets have been observing Earth. They know humanity has discovered rudimentary atomic energy, and they're experimenting with rockets.
The dangerous combination.
Exactly. The combination of nuclear weapons and space travel means humanity's violent tendencies are no longer just an earthly problem. They are a cosmic threat.
We're taking our mess on the road.
We are about to export our tribalism to the stars. Klaatu says he must warn the planet that it faces an ultimatum. Change your ways, or the planet Earth will have to be eliminated. And he assures Barnard that the power to eliminate Earth currently exists.
Barnard understands the gravity of this immediately. He agrees to gather the world's leading scientists for a meeting, but he tells Klaatu that simply delivering a speech won't be enough. He says they must be made to realize that this power exists.
Words aren't enough for humanity.
Right. He asks Klaatu for a demonstration of force, something that would affect the entire planet, but something dramatic, not destructive.
Klaatu considers this and says it's quite an interesting problem. And they schedule this global demonstration for the following day at exactly high noon.
This brings us to what I consider the climax of the radio play's second act, and frankly, one of the most brilliant concepts in the history of science fiction, the demonstration of restraint.
Yes.
The moment the Earth literally stands still, Barnard wants a demonstration. In almost any other pulp story, what does the alien do? He blows up the moon.
Right. Or vaporizes a mountain.
He levels a major city, something like that. But Klaatu does something entirely different.
The audio execution of this sequence is incredibly evocative.
Yeah.
The narrator begins a countdown. We know something massive is coming. Helen Benson and Mr. Carpenter happen to step into an elevator just 5 seconds before noon.
The tension is palpable.
The narrator describes the enormous, deafening commerce of our modern world, roaring and thundering in the streets of Washington, New York, London, Paris.
4 seconds, 3 seconds, 2, 1, 0, high noon and utter silence.
All over the world, the power simply stops. Traffic dies in a million streets. Bicycles stop moving. Electric clocks stop ticking. Toasters fail to pop.
It's eerie.
The massive humming turbines inside the Hoover Dam grind to a halt. Electric lights go out everywhere. And perhaps most significantly, massive naval battle fleets out on military maneuvers suddenly drift aimlessly on their dead propellers. The entire machine of human civilization is neutralized in a single second.
I love the twist here. By just turning off the juice, Klaatu executes the cosmic equivalent of a parent sending a misbehaving child to their room to sit in silence and think about what they have done.
That's a perfect analogy.
It is a global timeout. He's not acting as a conqueror. He's acting as a cosmic building inspector looking for code violations, and he just shut off the main breaker.
It is a breathtaking display of the emotional power of restraint. By stopping the world without shedding a single drop of blood, Klaatu proves his omnipotence.
Yeah.
He shows humanity that all of our terrifying, sophisticated weapons, our tanks, our fighter planes, our atomic bombs, are entirely useless. He strips us of our technological arrogance in an instant.
It's deeply humiliating for the military powers of Earth.
But the most critical detail, the detail that proves the profound morality behind this immense power, is the exceptions.
Yes. The military commanders, who are frantically trying to figure out what is happening, realize that while all power is cut, there are remarkable exceptions. Hospitals remain operational, and planes currently in flight are not affected.
And this answers the Chestertonian question perfectly.
Because they have the moral imagination?
Exactly. Klaatu's civilization possesses godlike technological power, but their moral imagination matches it. They understand that to leave a plane in the air without power would be an act of mass murder. To cut the power to an iron lung or a hospital operating room would be an act of unconscionable cruelty.
Right.
By specifically exempting the vulnerable from the blackout, Klaatu demonstrates a moral precision that humanity entirely lacks. They value life too much to cause accidental collateral damage just to make a point.
Which is a stunning contrast to how humans wage war. While Klaatu is executing this deeply moral, non-violent demonstration, human greed and tribalism are churning away right in the background. Are we learning our lesson during this cosmic pause?
Absolutely not.
Not at all. And this is embodied by the character of Tom Stevens.
Tom Stevens is Helen Benson's suitor, and he serves as the tragic, infuriating representation of ordinary human failure.
He's the worst.
While Klaatu is dealing with the fate of the entire planet, Tom is entirely focused on his own narrow, selfish ambitions.
Let's look at how he betrays Klaatu, because it is infuriating to listen to. Bobby, after seeing Klaatu sneak out at night to commune with the giant robot Gort, tells his mother and Tom what he saw. He even shows them the alien diamond Mr. Carpenter gave him.
A huge mistake.
Tom takes the diamond to a jeweler, realizes it's completely unearthly, and pieces together that the quiet man in the boarding house is the spaceman the whole world is hunting. The next day, while the power is out, Helen learns from Klaatu who he really is. She realizes Tom suspects the truth, so she races to Tom's office to stop him from turning Klaatu in.
The dialogue in Tom's office is a masterpiece of conflicting worldviews. Helen is desperate. She tells Tom that she knows what Klaatu came for, that he isn't a menace, that the fate of the entire world is involved. She is begging him to see the bigger picture and keep quiet.
I expected Tom to say something like, "He's an alien spy, it's my patriotic duty to report him," like playing the hero card.
Right.
But he doesn't. He literally says, "I don't give a hang about the rest of the world. I'm in this for me."
It's chilling.
He tells Helen, "You'll feel different when you see my picture in the papers. I'll be the biggest man in the country. I'll write my own ticket." Is he supposed to be evil, or is he just a typical ambitious guy?
That is exactly the point. He represents the banality of evil. If we place this in the broader historical context of 1954, we have to recognize how unbelievably daring this criticism was for a piece of popular network entertainment.
Because it was the McCarthy era.
Yes, this was the height of the Cold War. The prevailing cultural narrative in America was one of unquestioning patriotism. The American way of life, which heavily promoted ambitious individualism and capitalistic success, was championed as the highest moral good.
And the broadcast is saying that exact individualism is what's going to get us killed.
Precisely. Tom represents the worst of us, not because he is a Soviet spy or a diabolical mastermind. He is just a greedy, ordinary guy who thinks his personal promotion and a picture in the newspaper matter more than the survival of the human species. The story explicitly criticizes American individualism, nationalism, and self-interest as the exact moral failures that prevent us from joining a peaceful universe. Our worst enemy isn't an alien invader. It's a guy who wants a corner office and doesn't care if the world burns to get it.
So Tom calls the Pentagon. He betrays the savior of the world to the military authorities, General Cutler, for the promise of 15 minutes of fame and financial reward. And his betrayal sets the fatal climax in motion.
The military throws up roadblocks everywhere.
The hunt for Mr. Carpenter intensifies. Helen and Klaatu manage to get into a taxicab, but they are quickly surrounded by the army.
Klaatu realizes he isn't going to make it to the meeting with Professor Barnhart and the scientists. He knows the military is going to shoot him on sight.
Yeah.
But his primary fear in that taxicab isn't his own death. He is terrified of Gort.
He tells Helen, "I'm worried about Gort. I'm afraid of what he might do if anything should happen to me."
The stakes are suddenly planetary.
He explains that there is no limit to what the robot could do. Gort could destroy the Earth. And so he gives Helen the most famous command in the history of science fiction to deliver to the robot to stop him. Klaatu barada nikto.
It is the ultimate failsafe.
And then the tragedy happens. They abandon the taxi and try to run. The soldiers spot them. Klaatu steps forward, trying to draw their attention, and tells Helen to run. A soldier yells, "Shoot!" And Klaatu is gunned down in the street.
The Christ figure is killed by the authorities of the very people he came to save.
It's heartbreaking, but the theological allegory cannot end with the crucifixion. It requires the resurrection. Helen races to the ship on the mall. She arrives just as the military guards have been vaporized or incapacitated by Gort.
The giant metal robot is moving toward her, his visor opening, preparing to unleash the terrible energy that will likely vaporize her and the rest of Washington, D.C.
Just before she faints from terror, she manages to gasp the words, "Klaatu barada nikto."
And the command works. The robot stops. And what happens next is incredibly eerie, especially on audio.
Yeah, Gort, this towering engine of destruction, leaves the ship, goes to the city jail, and retrieves Klaatu's dead body. He carries him back inside the spaceship. Helen wakes up inside the ship, bathed in a soft, shadowless light.
She sees Gort applying strange electrodes to Klaatu's body. The piercing, whining sound of the vermin fills the ship, and Klaatu moves.
He sits up.
He is brought back to life.
Wait, so the robot brings him back to life. Who is actually in charge here?
That is the twist that redefines the entire narrative. It's a mechanical resurrection. It completes the Christ narrative, but with a deeply unsettling science-fictional deviation.
It's not divine intervention, it's technology.
Right. Klaatu explains to Helen that this resurrection is only temporary. The technique can restore life in some cases, but only for a limited time. The eternal life of the soul is left to the Almighty.
Interesting distinction.
Yes. He has been given a brief return from death, just long enough to step outside and deliver his final judgment to the gathered scientists. But your question about who is in charge is the crux of the matter. Gort isn't just a heavy lifter or a bodyguard. As Klaatu explains it, Gort is the master.
Which brings us to the most terrifying concept in the entire story, the dilemma of outsourced morality. How does an advanced civilization actually enforce universal peace without resorting to war themselves?
It's a paradox, isn't it?
Klaatu steps out of the ship to address the scientists from all over the world. He delivers his final message bluntly. He says that the universe is growing smaller every day. His people believe there must be security for all, or no one is secure.
And to achieve this security, they realized they could not rely on the goodwill of politicians, treaties, or even the moral evolution of their citizens.
No, they built a machine. Klaatu tells the crowd, "We have created a race of robots whose function it is to patrol the planets and spaceships and preserve the peace. In matters of aggression, we have given them absolute power over us."
He says, at the first sign of treachery, the robots will act automatically. Nothing on Earth can stop them.
They surrendered their free will to a machine.
Yes. They outsourced their morality to an algorithm. They built an autonomous enforcer with overwhelming power, and they intentionally stripped themselves of the ability to override it.
That is terrifying.
If a planet acts with aggression, the robot destroys them automatically, without debate, without a trial, without political interference or appeals for mercy. Gort is a machine preserving peace through the threat of absolute, instantaneous annihilation.
I am having a really hard time cheering for Klaatu here. Isn't he basically acting as an interstellar dictator? Like, do what my robot says or he will blow up your planet.
That's the uncomfortable reality of his message.
Does this mean that even the advanced, enlightened aliens are incapable of governing themselves morally? That they realize the organic mind is too flawed, too prone to anger and tribalism, and so they handed the keys to the universe over to a machine that cannot feel pity, but only executes a program?
That is exactly what it implies, and it is why this 1950s concept feels startlingly modern today. We are currently grappling with the exact dilemma Klaatu presents.
Because of AI.
Yes. We are living in the dawn of advanced artificial intelligence. We are developing autonomous drones and weapon systems that can identify and engage targets without human intervention. We are increasingly relying on algorithms to police our behavior, curate our information, and manage our societies.
Because we don't trust ourselves. We know we are biased, we know we are tribal, we know we are prone to panic, just like the soldier who shot Klaatu. So the temptation is to build a perfect, impartial, unfeeling system to enforce the rules. We are actively trying to build Gorder.
We are. The idea of surrendering our free will, our ability to choose war or peace, to an algorithmic enforcer because we can no longer trust our own trigger fingers is a terrifying abdication of moral responsibility.
Klaatu presents this as the ultimate achievement of his civilization.
He claims it does not mean giving up any freedom, except the freedom to act irresponsibly. But from a human perspective, surrendering the power of life and death to an unfeeling machine isn't utopia. It is the peace of a prison, overseen by an indestructible robotic warden.
It's a dark answer to the Chestertonian question. When technological power advances faster than moral imagination, the only way to survive is to build an even bigger machine that physically forces you to behave.
It's an incredibly heavy conclusion.
As we look at how this story wraps up, Klaatu's final ultimatum leaves no room for negotiation at all.
He looks out at the people of Earth, and his final words are chilling in their simplicity. He says, the penalty for provoking their action is too terrible to risk. Your choice is simple. Join us and live in peace, or pursue your present course and face obliteration.
Wow.
We shall be waiting for your answer. The decision rests with you.
And then he leaves. He steps back into the ship with Gort, the ship takes off, and they depart, leaving the Earth staring up at the sky, holding the bag. It is such a stark ending.
It is, and it firmly places this story alongside the great moral science fiction of its era. This isn't just about space travel.
No, not at all.
It belongs in the same tradition as C.S. Lewis's Space Trilogy, which explored the theology of unfallen worlds, or Ray Bradbury's Martian Chronicles, which dissected the destructive nature of human colonization.
Or Arthur C. Clarke's Childhood's End.
Yes, exactly. All of these writers used the pulp exterior of rockets and flying saucers to smuggle in deeply serious moral philosophy.
They disguised the medicine as candy. You thought you were tuning in to the Lux Radio Theatre for a fun monster story to take your mind off the Cold War, and suddenly you're being asked to evaluate the spiritual rot of your entire civilization. It's brilliant.
The legacy in The Day the Earth Stood Still is that it remains perhaps the purest, most articulate delivery of that moral warning. It utilized the very real anxieties of the atomic age to hold up a mirror to the listener.
Which leaves us with a profound set of questions for everyone listening out there tonight. It has been over 7 decades since this radio broadcast aired in 1954. Since then, we have mapped the human genome, we've put supercomputers in our pockets, we have connected the entire globe instantly.
Our technological power has compounded exponentially.
But have we actually matured since the atomic age? Or does fear still govern our civilization? When we encounter the unknown, do we reach out with an open hand? Or do we still instinctively reach for a weapon? Have we outgrown the tragedy of Tom Stevens, who would sell out the world for his own advancement?
If we look objectively at the state of the world, the evidence suggests that our moral imagination is still desperately struggling to catch up with our technological reach. We are still frightened animals holding the weapons of gods.
Yeah.
And as we consider our own modern attempts to build Gort, to build artificial intelligence that can govern and protect us, it introduces a final, terrifying thought. If we do successfully build an autonomous, all-powerful AI to enforce planetary peace, whose morality will we program it with?
That's the million-dollar question.
Will it reflect Western individualism or Eastern collectivism? Will it prioritize freedom or safety? And the most dangerous question of all, if we program an entirely objective, logical machine to eliminate the greatest threat to global peace, wouldn't it immediately deduce that humanity itself is the threat?
Oh, wow.
In our attempt to build a protector, we might simply be building our own executioner.
Because an algorithm doesn't understand grace. It only understands the code, and if the code says eliminate the source of violence, we wouldn't survive the first hour.
Exact.
The greatest science fiction isn't about predicting the technology of the future. It is about examining the soul of man in the present. When the earth stands still and all our noisy machines, our traffic, our televisions, our engines of war are finally quiet, what is left?
That's the ultimate question.
It's a heavy thought to leave you with, but a necessary one. Thank you for joining us on this depth dive tonight. Out here on Chesterton Radio, we believe these forgotten stories still have a lot to teach us. May your night be thoughtful. As you turn off the radio and listen to the rain, remember that the true measure of our civilization isn't the power of our machines, but the depth of our moral imagination. Good night.